I found a girl during the famine years, but 300 years later, during the Immortal Demon War, she, now a demon lord, pierced my heart with an arrow. She stepped on me like I was a dead dog. Chen Huayan, back when you framed me. Did you ever think this day would come? But what he didn't know was, I willingly died by her hand. I made a deal with the system, complete the mission, and I could return to Blue Star. To do that, 300 years ago, I stole the immortal sword, betrayed the sect, and achieved the immortal venerable realm. And she was locked in the sect's dungeon, suffering a fate worse than death. Otherwise, with my cultivation, how could I not dodge a sword from her, whom I trained myself? Standing before me was the only female demon lord in this world, Luo Lingshuang, my former little junior sister. Feeling my life slowly slip away, I could only force a bitter smile. Was this really worth it? She didn't say a word. Instead, she pulled the Hate-Shang sword out of my body. Blood splattered all over her face. She kicked me to the ground, looking down at me from above. Those eyes, once as clear as a sea trim, now seemed frozen for 1,000 years. But deep within that ice, there was a barely perceptible tremor. Chen Huayan, is there anything else you want to say? I opened my mouth, but it was full of blood. The mission required me to die by her sword. I couldn't say anything that might shake her resolve, or the mission would fail, and I couldn't return to Blue Star, so I chose to stay silent. She crouched down, her slender fingers gripping my chin, forcing my face towards hers, making me look into her eyes. Chen Huayan, this lord asks you one last time. Her voice was hoarse, but it trembled. Don't you really want to say what she wants to hear? Of course I knew. She wanted to hear me say I'm sorry, to admit that my betrayal back then was wrong, to hear me tell her with my own mouth those years I was sincere, that warmth wasn't fake. Pulling her out of the abyss of death wasn't for any other purpose. I looked into her eyes and forced a smile uglier than crying. A long silence. She waited a long time. Finally, her expression turned completely cold. Fine. Since you won't speak, then never speak again. I watched my own blood on the sword's tip, and time seemed to flow back to the past. It was an era of snow disasters. Mountains and rivers were frozen, rivers stopped flowing, countless low-level cultivators and mortals froze to death. During that long winter, frozen corpses were everywhere on the roadside. Faced with such a catastrophic era, everyone could barely save themselves. Back then, I had just transmigrated to this world less than 3 days ago. Following the system's instructions, I found a nearly collapsed thatched hut by the village path. The moment I pushed open the door, I saw her, a tiny figure curled up in the corner of the room, wrapped in a tattered piece of sackcloth. She was so small that I could lift her entirely with one hand, covered in frostbite and scars. Her breath was so faint it was almost imperceptible. When I crouched down and held her in my arms, she was as light as a withered leaf. Don't be afraid, I'll take you away. The little girl didn't react, but the moment I picked her up, her hand instinctively clutched the corner of my clothes, gripping it tightly, like a drowning person grabbing the last piece of driftwood. Later, I learned about her background. Her name was Lu Lingshuang. She was born without a mother, and the villagers had driven her away. In this harsh world, crueler than the cultivation world, she fought with wild dogs for food every day, sleeping in haystacks by the roadside. I don't know how she survived until the day I appeared. Maybe fate wanted her to suffer a little more. To support her, I went to the Xuanchen sect to work as an outer disciple doing chores, sweeping, chopping wood, carrying spirit stone ore, cleaning alchemy furnaces, feeding spirit beasts. I did every kind of work, 12 hours a day. Aside from sleeping, I was just working. The pay was pitiful, barely enough to buy some coarse grains and cloth. But Luo Lingshuang grew up from 5 years old to 10, from 10 to 15, becoming a graceful young woman. Her talent was excellent, far better than mine. I was noticed by an elder and promoted from a chore disciple to an outer disciple. 10 years later, I entered the inner sect. She followed me into the Xuanchen sect, becoming my little junior sister. Those days were the best 300 years I had in this world. My thoughts were pulled back to reality as the Hate-Shang sword fell, but at the last moment, I noticed a detail. Her hand holding the sword was trembling. The moment the Hate-Shang sword pierced my body, her eyes went blank for an instant, but then they returned to their fierce determination. My body began to dissipate on this blood-soaked battlefield. Behind me were only the screams of the righteous army being slaughtered by demon cultivators. Just before I lost my sight, the last image I saw was her back. As lonely as it was 300 years ago, the little junior sister who stood on Hangxiu Peak, waiting for me for an entire day and night. I'm sorry. Those 3 words never made it out. Time goes back 300 years to my 3rd year in the Xuanchen sect's inner sect. Back then, my cultivation had reached the late golden core stage, which was considered outstanding among my peers. Luo Lingshuang was faster than me. She joined later. Her talent crushed everyone else. In just a few years, she was at the peak of golden core, showing signs of breaking through to nascent soul. Everyone in the sect said she was a once-in-a-century genius. I was secretly happy, though I still put on a dignified senior brother facade. I was actually incredibly proud inside. After all, that was the little girl I raised. During that time, Luo Lingshuang was assigned as one of the guards of the sect's treasure pavilion. This was a sign of the sect's trust and importance in her. New mission released. Mission content: steal the Xuanchen sect's supreme treasure, the Yushi Immortal sword. Mission description: collaborate with demonic forces to create chaos and take the opportunity to steal the immortal sword. This sword is essential for the host's later cultivation. Reward: cultivation directly promoted to peak nascent soul, plus an immortal grade technique. The Hunt in Ju. Penanti. Refusal means permanently unable to return to Blue Star. Are you kidding me? I'm an inner disciple of the Xuanchen sect, Luo Lingshuang's senior brother. You want me to be a traitor? System? I refuse. Refusal means permanently locking the transmigration state with no possibility of returning to Blue Star. Reminder, host. Your guardian on Blue Star, Miss Jiangqiu, is in an extremely unstable mental state. She is currently posting missing person notices everywhere. It projected an image into my mind. My aunt stood on the street, her haggard face covered in tears, holding a stack of missing person notices with my photo. She was posting them one by one in the wind and snow, her hands red from cold, crying as she posted. At that moment, I froze completely. My aunt was my only family. She was only about 10 years older than me, but after my parents died in a car accident, she was the one who raised me. She never married or had children of her own. All her efforts were poured into me. She worked 2 jobs to support my education, washed my clothes, cooked for me, and stayed by my bedside all night when I was sick. She wasn't my mother, but she did more than a mother would. I transmigrated to this godforsaken place, and I've been gone for decades. Although time flows differently on Blue Star, according to the system, a considerable amount of time has passed on Blue Star. My aunt must think I'm dead. She must think her only relative just vanished from the world. I closed my eyes, blood surging through my body. After a long time, I opened them and said, accept the mission. I never expected those 4 words would push Luo Lingxuan into the abyss. To ensure the plan was foolproof, I made the most meticulous arrangements. Those demon cultivators had long coveted the Xuanqin sect's treasure. I gave them an insider's identity, and they gladly accepted. The only problem was Luo Lingxuan. She was one of the treasure pavilion's guards. If she was there, with her strength and vigilance, the demonic cultivators couldn't get in at all. I had to lure her away. So I wrote a letter saying, little junior sister, your senior brother, found a 1,000-year ice spirit grass on Hangxiu Peak, which will greatly help you break through to nascent soul. Your senior brother is busy with affairs today and can't get away. Go to Hangxiu Peak first and wait for me. Before dark, I will definitely come. I knew she would go because in this world, if there was one person she trusted without reservation, it was me, her senior brother. After all, I was the one who carried her out of that snowy wasteland. I was the one who gave her name, taught her to read, write, and cultivate. I was the one who, on nights when she woke from nightmares, sat by her bed and said over and over, senior brother is here, don't be afraid. How could she not trust me? There was another line in my letter. Lingxuan, your senior brother has a surprise for you. That day, she went to Hangxiu Peak, wearing the light blue dress I had given her before. She only wore that dress on her happiest days, but she waited on the peak for an entire day, from sunrise to sunset, until the wind and snow picked up and the sky darkened. She didn't wait for the senior brother she longed for. What came instead were the sect's enforcement elders and a piece of news. Chen Huai colluded with demonic forces to steal the sect's supreme treasure, the Yukimori sword, and has defected from the Xuanqin sect. Luo Lingxuan, as a treasure pavilion guard, you abandoned your post. You are suspected of being an accomplice. Luo Lingxuan's relationship with Chen Huaiyan is close. She must have been in on it from the start. Don't be fooled by his usual aloof demeanor. Who knows, she might have been colluding with him all along. Tongues wagged. She tried to explain, but no one believed her. Everyone pointed fingers at her as a traitor. The sect imprisoned her, drained her spiritual power, and subjected her to severe torture. In that dark, damp dungeon, her bones were broken, she was force-fed poison, and subjected to forbidden soul-searching techniques. But she still believed in her senior brother. During those nights of torment, she desperately hoped to see the figure she regarded as her light. But in the end, no one came to save her. And I, the instigator, was thousands of miles away, using the Immortal sword seized from the demonic forces to frantically boost my own cultivation. Once the Immortal sword was in hand, I turned around and killed all those demon cultivators. The system was satisfied. In the 3rd year of Luo Lingxuan's imprisonment, she disappeared, vanished from the dungeon. The sect searched the entire mountain, but couldn't find her. No one knew where she went, whether she was alive or dead. Until 300 years later, the Luoyuan continent produced its first female demon lord at the Heavenly Venerable Realm, and her name was Luo Lingxuan. She was ruthless. The first thing she did after leaving seclusion was to massacre the Xuanqin sect. Tens of thousands of people in the entire sect, not a single survivor. Then she came for me. And by then, with the system's help, I had also reached the Heavenly Venerable Realm, established my own sect, and become the only immortal venerable of the Righteous Alliance. The immortal and demonic paths stood in opposition. We faced each other on the immortal demon battlefield, separated by thousands of troops, and a sea of blood and hatred. 300 years later, she had grown up. The little girl who used to chase me around the yard had become a demon lord, shrouded in demonic energy, with a face as cold as frost. Beneath her 300 years of hatred and murderous intent, I could still recognize those eyes. They were the same eyes she opened when I first picked her up in the blizzard. The first time she looked at me, I found that I hadn't completely dissipated. More precisely, the system didn't send me away immediately. It gave me one last hour to say goodbye to this world. Final mission completed. As the host's soul needs time to stabilize, the host will be granted 1 hour of free time. After 1 hour, the host will return to Blue Star. During this period, the host exists as a residual soul, unable to interact with any living being. I floated in mid-air, lay a transparent observer, trapped in this world for the last hour. The Immortal Demon War ended. The Immortal Alliance was utterly defeated. Most of the righteous cultivators were killed. The rest either surrendered or scattered. Luo Lingxuan alone rode the wind away from the battlefield, but she only went to one place, Hangxiu Peak. That was the former site of the Xuanqin sect. The once majestic and magnificent sect was now reduced to ruins after her massacre. Wild grass grew among the broken walls and rubble. The once ethereal immortal aura had turned into a dead silence. She stood at the edge of the cliff, with a bottomless abyss below, thick fog rolling, and by the cliff there was an ancient pine tree, its branches strong as dragons, its needles a vibrant green. In the midst of this ruin was the only living thing left. Because this tree was planted by me and her together, it was her first year in the Xuanqin sect. Winter had just passed, and the spring snow was melting. She picked up a pine nut on the mountain and ran to find me, her eyes shining as she said, "Senior brother, let's plant a tree." I asked her why she wanted to plant a tree. Senior brother said pine trees are the toughest trees. Wind and snow can't crush them, lightning can't strike them down. Lingxuan wants to be as strong as a pine tree too. Okay, so we dug a hole on the cliff of Hangxiu Peak and buried the pine nut inside. She watered it very seriously, and even took out a red string from her pocket, tying it to a nearby stone, calling it a wish string. I asked her what she wished for. She put her hands behind her back, her face slightly flushed. I won't tell you. Then she whispered something, so softly it was almost inaudible. I wish senior brother will never leave Lingxuan. When Lingxuan grows up, she will definitely marry senior brother. 300 years later, the pine nut had grown into a towering tree, and the two who planted it, one had become a world-destroying demon lord, the other a dissipating residual soul. I watched Luo Lingxuan stand before that pine tree. She reached out and gently touched the rough bark. Then she slowly crouched down, squatting by the tree roots, hugging her knees. Tears streamed down her face in large drops, falling onto withered leaves. For 300 years, the demon lord Luo Lingxuan had never shed a single tear in front of countless cultivators. When her spiritual power was drained and bones were dug out in the Xuanqin sect's dungeon, she didn't cry. When she massacred the sect, she didn't cry. When she killed me, she didn't cry. But now, facing this silent old pine tree, she cried like a child, like the way she cried at 5 years old, curled up in that thatched hut. When no one came for her, I stood behind her, reaching out to touch her head, but my hand passed through her hair. I couldn't touch anything. Chen Huaiyan, you lied to me. My residual soul silently spoke behind her. I'm so Lingxuan, but she couldn't hear me. No one could hear me. How I wished I could hold her, just lie when she was little, pull her into my arms, and say over and over, "Senior brother is here, don't be afraid." But I was no longer her senior brother. I was just a wisp of residual soul about to fade away. The hour passed quickly. My residual soul began to become even more transparent. It was time to go. Before I completely dissipated, I took one last look at her. She was still crouching there, hugging her knees, lay a wounded little beast, curled up under that old pine tree that held her most precious memories. Goodbye, Lingxuan. My consciousness sank into endless darkness, but Luo Lingshuang's see-to-re didn't end under that pine tree, in a place I didn't know, in a timeline I couldn't see. She cried on Hangzhou Peak for a long time, so long that dusk turned into deep night, and deep night turned into dawn. After she finished crying, she stood up, wiped away her tears, and walked down the mountain. She went to the demon sect and summoned an elder. This elder was one of the people who had rescued her from the Xuanshan sect's dungeon. Luo Lingshuang had always believed she escaped, because this elder saved her out of some motive, but today she decided to get to the bottom of it, because one doubt had been stuck in her heart. Why did Chen Huaiyan collude with demonic forces to steal the immortal sword, and then later be rescued by those same demonic forces? It was too coincidental to be a coincidence. When that elder was summoned before Luo Lingshuang, his face changed, she noted. With her heavenly venerable perception, the sudden acceleration of the elder's heartbeat couldn't be hidden from her. This lord asks you one thing. 300 years ago, who ordered you to rescue this lord from the Xuanshan sect's dungeon? In reply to the demon lord, it was this subordinate's own decision, thinking that the demon lord's talent was extraordinary. Liar. The elder fell to his knees, trembling like a sieve. His little tricks couldn't fool Luo Lingshuang's eyes. She didn't give him a chance to argue further. Her heavenly venerable spiritual power directly crushed the elder's soul defense and plunged into the depths of his memories. Soul-searching. The elder's memories unfolded like a book before her eyes. She saw it. She saw a young man in white, using his own blood, drop by drop, to form a seal, turning him into a puppet under his command. That young man's face was all too familiar to her. Chen Huaiyan. Orchestrate a perfect prison break. The time, the route, the gaps and the formations, every detail was precise to the extreme. She saw even more. Far more than she had imagined. She saw Chen Huaiyan at the nascent soul stage, challenging a peak transformation god ancient demon beast, fighting a bloody battle for 3 days and 3 nights. In the image, he was drenched in blood. With 6 broken ribs, his left arm nearly torn off, blood covering his entire face, his eyes barely able to open, but he still got up, again and again. Every time the beast sent him flying, he gritted his teeth and crawled out of the rubble, raising the Yushi immortal sword, standing up unsteadily, lion indomitable, unbeatable cockroach, the beast roared at him in fury. But Chen Huaiyan just spat out a mouthful of blood, a smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. Is that all you've got? I'm running out of time in there. If I don't finish this, she'll find me. She? Who is she? Luo Lingshuang's fingers dug into her palms. Of course she knew who she was. It was her trapped deep in the ruins. The images continued to surge. She saw Chen Huaiyan collapse from exhaustion after killing the beast, lying in a pool of blood, unconscious for half a day. The first thing he did when he woke up was to command the puppet to clean up all traces at the scene, leaving not a single clue. She saw other things too. That time she was ambushed in a secret realm. Chen Huaiyan had infiltrated the realm 3 days in advance, using his true Ki to destroy the keynotes of the ambush formation, turning that ambush into a false alarm. That ancient demonic cultivation manual she stumbled upon, Chen Huaiyan had spent 2 years risking his life to retrieve it from a forbidden area, and then had the puppet place it on her path. During her tribulation to advance the transformation god, the heart demon tribulation, Chen Huaiyan had used a divine sense clone to enter her heart demon space and took the most fatal blow for her. The price was his own primordial spirit cracking, nearly causing him to die on the spot. Scene after scene, 300 years, a full 300 years. He had been watching over her in the shadows for 300 years. Every time she thought it was a stroke of luck from heaven, every tribulation she thought she had overcome through her own efforts, every opportunity she thought fate had finally favored her with, it was all him. All of it was Chen Huaiyan. The man she had hated for 300 years, cursed for 300 years, and sworn to kill with her own hands, had been in a place she couldn't see, using his own blood and life to pave the way for her. Luo Lingshuang withdrew from the elder's soul memories. Her vision was blurry. Tears streamed down uncontrollably. The images weren't over yet. The final scene. She saw the final immortal demon battle again. She saw her own hate Sheng. Sword pierced Chen Huaiyan's chest. Both were at the heavenly venerable realm. With his strength, Chen Huaiyan could easily block that sword, but he didn't dodge. It was as if he had thrown himself onto it, and at the moment the sword tip pierced him, she clearly saw the curve of his lips. He was smiling. That smile wasn't mockery, nor bitterness. It was relief. As if he had finally unloaded some heavy burden, as if to say, it's finally over. Luo Lingshuang's body collapsed to her knees like a broken puppet. She covered her face with her hands, her nails digging into her own skin. Tears fell through her fingers, drop by drop. Blood drips down along the fingers, but she can't feel the pain, because the pain in her heart has swallowed all sensation. He tremblingly pulled something from his storage pouch. The Immortal sword. It was the trophy he had taken from Chen Huaiyan. After Chen Huaiyan dissipated, this sword fell on the battlefield, and he picked it up. He originally thought this sword was just a weapon, a symbol of betrayal, but now he found the seal on the sword had been lifted, because the one who set the seal was dead. After the seal dissipated, a faint remnant voice emerged from the sword spirit. Weak, like a candle in the wind, about to go out, but he heard it clearly. Well done, little junior sister. This is the senior brother's fate. It was Chen Huaiyan's voice, hoarse and weak, yet carrying the gentleness she once knew. Senior brother has to go to a place very, very far away. After I'm gone, you must take good care of yourself. You have to walk the road ahead on your own. I'm sorry, Lingshuang, for making you suffer. The voice faded. The sword spirit fell silent. Luo Lingshuang knelt on the ground, holding the Immortal sword in both hands, as if holding the most precious thing in the world. She cried, her whole body trembling, her shoulders heaving violently, letting out intermittent sobs. 300 years. He had waited 300 years to finally hear that apology, but the one who said it was already gone. Senior brother, why didn't you tell me sooner? Lingshuang, don't be so Lingshuang, I want senior brother. Come back, I beg you, come back. But no one answered him. The cold wind howled over the ruins. The branches of that old pine rustled in the wind, as if softly saying in someone's place, don't cry, Lingshuang. At that moment, I suddenly opened my eyes. In front of me was a dim ceiling. My body felt as heavy as lead. I instinctively tried to sense the spiritual energy in my body, but found my dantian completely empty. My meridians were like dried up riverbeds, unable to sense even the faintest spiritual energy fluctuation. I had become immortal. But when I tried to move, I found that although my cultivation was gone, the strength of my muscles and bones seemed to remain. The foundation of body refinement had lasted 300 years. The tempering of the physical body from cultivation hadn't completely disappeared. The strangest thing was that I could faintly sense that the stars seemed to have the same spiritual energy as the falling cow continent, though very weak. I turned over and got out of bed, stumbled, and almost fell. Everything in my sight was too unreal. This was a rental room, about 10 square meters, but not the room I was familiar with. There were pink graffiti on the wall, a row of skincare products on the table, the sheets and quilt were all pink, and there was a teddy bear on the windowsill. This was a girl's room. The rental room I lived in before the time travel was no longer mine. In these 3 years, the landlord had probably taken it back and rented it to someone else. I looked out the window, tall buildings everywhere. Bustling traffic, it was Blue Star. I had really come back. A huge wave of emotion surged from my chest. 300 years. I had struggled in that damned cultivation world for 307 years. From an 18-year-old youth to a sect's supreme master to a corpse pierced by a demon sword. Now I was finally back. I scanned the room, and on the bedside table I saw a phone. The date on the screen made me freeze. On the bedside table I saw a phone. The date on the screen made me freeze. 3 years. Blue Star had passed 3 years. My mind was silent. The system that had been noisy for 300 years was also gone. I was about to go out and grabbed a tissue to wipe my face. The next moment, the bathroom door suddenly opened. A cow of steam billowed out, followed by a figure wrapped in a towel. Pink hair wet draped over her shoulders. A delicate face emerged from the white mist. The girl was still drying her hair, her eyes lazy. Then she saw me. We stared at each other for about 3 seconds. A scream nearly pierced my eardrums. The girl screamed and stepped back 2 steps, one hand clutching the towel tightly, the other grabbing a bottle of body wash from the sink and threw it at me. Pervert, scumbag, how did you get in? Get out. The body wash bottle hit me square on the forehead. It hurt so much I stumbled. Wait. I'm not a pervert. I can explain. Explain my ass. I'm calling the police. She actually pulled out her phone to dial. From outside came the banging of a neighbor's knock on the door. What's going on in there? Should I call the police? Damn, I can't explain this. If I dawdle any longer, I'll really be caught as a pervert. I turned, pushed open the window, and jumped out. This was the 3rd floor, about 8 or 9 meters high. For an ordinary person, this jump would kill or cripple them, but I found that as I landed, my knees bent slightly, and my feet planted firmly on the ground without even a tremor. Sure enough, the body refinement foundation was still there. 300 years of heavenly sovereign realm body tempering wasn't for nothing. I didn't look back, I just ran. The wind stung my face, carrying the smell of car exhaust and city dust unique to Blue Star. Unpleasant but familiar. I ran for over 10 minutes straight, and after making sure no one was chasing me, I stopped, bent over, and gasped for breath. A billboard on the street played news I couldn't understand. People on the road hurried by, most with a tense, wary look on their faces. This wasn't normal. I remember this street used to be full of people strolling around, but now wasn't the time to dwell on that because I saw something. On a utility pole, a yellowed piece of paper, probably weathered by sun, wind, and rain, its edges curled up. The color mostly faded. The content was still readable. In the center was my photo. Below the photo, 4 words. Missing person notice. Below that, a line of handwritten text, the handwriting crooked, as if the writer's hand was trembling. Wyan, your aunt is looking for you. If you see this, please contact. Followed by a phone number. Signed, Jang Yix. I crouched under the utility pole, staring at that paper for a long time, so long that a passing auntie gave me a strange look. Auntie, I'm back. I'm finally back. I followed my memory and ran toward home. The neighborhood where my aunt lived wasn't far, about 3 bus stops away. I used to walk this road to school every day, and I wouldn't get lost even with my eyes closed. When I reached the entrance of the neighborhood, my heart was pounding so fast it felt like it would jump out of my throat. I entered the building, went upstairs, and stood in front of that door, so familiar in my memory. I took a deep breath and knocked, but the person who opened the door was... I took a deep breath and knocked, but the person who opened the door was a strange man in his 40s. Who are you looking for? I used to lie here. Excuse me, where did the original tenant go? You mean the previous tenant? They moved away a long time ago, about 2 years back. I rented it later. Do you know where they moved to? No idea. The door closed. I stood in the hallway, stunned for a while. Don't panic, there's still the phone number. The number left on the missing person notice. I went back to the tenant's door and knocked again. What now? The man's face showed impatience. Sorry. Could I borrow your phone just to make one call? It'll be quick. The man hesitated, probably seeing my anxious face and thinking I wasn't a bad guy, and handed me the phone. I dialed the number. The number you dialed is out of service. I dialed again. The number you dialed is out of service. I was frantic. With my info, I should be able to find out where she moved. But just as I was halfway there, the sky changed. Not like a cloudy change, but a strange black mist suddenly appeared in the sky, spreading light ink across the blue sky. Extremely fast. Then the beast is coming. Run. Another spatial rift? Run to the subway station. It's safe underground. I stood on the street, watching the panicked crowd around me, completely confused. Beast? Spatial rift? This is Blue Star? When did Blue Star have beasts? But the next second, I understood. A rift tore open in the black mist, not very large, but big enough for a tiger-lay beast, about 2 stories tall, to crawl out of it. Its body was covered in black, arm-like scales, its eyes glowing with a ghostly green light, thick, sticky blood dripping from its huge fangs. I sensed its spiritual energy fluctuation, below the golden core stage, probably at a peak of foundation establishment. But for ordinary people on Blue Star, this was an apocalyptic monster. It lunged at the fleeing crowd. At that moment, I saw 3 young people, 2 men and 1 woman, in their early 20s, running the slowest. They didn't even have time to look back. The beast's jaw came down. A mist of blood exploded. 3 young lives vanished before my eyes, not even leaving bones behind. I clenched my fists, trying to summon the spiritual energy in my body. Nothing. I couldn't touch the threshold of the stage, but the horrific scene of those 3 was right in front of me. Soon it would be my turn. Who cares if I have cultivation or not? I was once a celestial sovereign. I took a step and charged forward. 300 years of combat instinct made me leap up, and I punched the beast's side of the neck. A dull thud followed. A huge recoil force traveled from the impact point back to my arm, numbing my entire arm. But the beast was actually staggered by my punch, stumbling back 2 steps. It let out an unwilling roar, its green eyes staring at me as if unable to believe a mortal could hurt it. I was always surprised, although I knew Cultivation. The strength of this body far exceeded my expectations. The inherited body refinement, though less than a tenth, was still no joke from a celestial sovereign. The beast lunged again. I dodged to the side and at the same time, grabbed a bare steel bar from the rubble of a building about 1.2 meters long, as thick as an arm, and pulled it out. Although I had no spiritual energy to infuse it, I had something else. Soul power is different from spiritual energy. Soul power is the power of the primordial spirit. Although my cultivation was 0, the framework of the celestial sovereign's immortal spirit was still there, and the residual soul power was still there. I poured the remaining soul power into the steel bar. An ordinary piece of construction waste became a weapon emitting a faint silver light in my hand. The beast sensed the danger and let out an enraged roar. But just as I was about to act, a whistling wind came from behind me. Everyone, form up. Tactical formation 3, surround. A group of people in black uniforms poured in from both sides of the street, their movements well trained. I was surprised to find that they actually had faint spiritual energy on them at about the foundation establishment level. The one in front, with pink hair tied in a high ponytail, wearing a tactical uniform, her delicate face full of seriousness and ferocity, was actually the girl from the rental room. No, at this moment, she was more like a cheetah ready to tear its prey apart. A faint purple light gathered in her hand, her cultivation at the peak of foundation establishment. We have to stop this beast here. Comrades. The citizens' lives depend on us. With her command, over a dozen black-clad people released their spiritual energy simultaneously, forming a combined formation, their spiritual energy weaving into a net, trapping the tiger-lay beast in the center. After a fierce battle, some were injured, some were sent flying. But finally, under the girl's command, the beast was slain. The beast's corpse crashed to the ground, kicking up a cow of dust. The girl was panting heavily, her forehead covered in sweat. Then, while cleaning up the scene, she saw me in the crowd, still holding that glowing steel bar. Our eyes met. Her face went from white to red, then from red to white. She was probably remembering the time she came out of the bathroom and was seen naked by a strange man. Without a word, she rushed over, grabbed my collar, and said, "Take him away, put him in the car." "Wait, I can explain. Less talk, move." And just like that, I was shoved into a black van. From their conversations, I learned that these people belonged to the official Chinese organization, the Jimo Bureau. 3 years ago. At the moment I traveled to the fallen cow continent, Blue Star suddenly began spiritual energy revival. The concentration of spiritual energy in the world increased dozens of times in the following months. Gaining supernatural abilities. The authorities classified them by strength: A level, B level, C level, D level, S level, S level, S level. Currently, the highest known level on Blue Star is D level, said to be only a handful globally, and that pink-haired girl, Gu Mengyao, was the captain of the Jinhai City Jimo Bureau, a peak D-level superpower in this city, considered one of the best. At the same time, the spiritual energy revival also brought side effects. Spatial rifts would occasionally appear in the sky, and various mutated beasts would descend from these rifts. These beasts fed on spiritual energy and preyed on humans, bringing great disaster to Blue Star. The Jimo Bureau was established to deal with this situation. "So what exactly are you?" Gu Mengyao sat across from me, arms crossed, her eyes wary. I used a set of explanations. "That rental room was mine before. 3 years ago, I was inexplicably teleported to another place and only came back yesterday. When I returned, I found my room was occupied by you. This really wasn't intentional." She clearly didn't believe me, but didn't immediately refute. "Teleported? Are you saying you're also an awakened one?" "Not really. I have no supernatural energy fluctuation." "That was true. I really had no spiritual energy now." "Then how did you survive that beast earlier?" "That was equivalent to a D-level beast. Probably just good physical fitness." Gu Mengyao stared at me for a long time. Her intuition told her that this man was not simple, but she really couldn't detect any supernatural energy fluctuation from me. Finally, she didn't press further. "All right, I'll let this go for now. But you said you lost contact with your family?" "Dead. My aunt's name is Jiang Yixu. 3 years ago, she lived in the old neighborhood in the south of the city. Now she's moved, and her phone is out of service. Can you help me find her whereabouts?" "I can try. In these past few years, due to beast disasters, many people have gone missing or been killed or injured. The authorities have a missing person search system, but I can't guarantee I'll find anything." "Thank you." She glanced at me, as if about to say something, but just snorted and turned her face to the window. She was probably still angry about the rental room incident. I silently apologized in my heart. Gu Mengyao didn't report my existence, which surprised me a bit. Later she explained to me that in these past few years, some people who awakened their abilities just wanted to lie a normal life and didn't want to be registered and conscripted by the authorities. Although she was a Jimo Bureau captain, she could understand that mindset. Besides, even if I posed a threat to the city as a PT level superpower, she was confident she could handle it. If she knew that in another world I was a celestial sovereign, she probably wouldn't be so confident, but I didn't plan to tell her. Drawing official attention at this point would only cause trouble, and I just wanted to find my aunt. Gu Mengyao arranged for me to stay at a budget hotel and got me a phone and a new number. I stared at that brand new phone, feeling like it was a lifetime ago. I hadn't touched an electronic product in 300 years. The last time I used a phone was the day before I traveled. That night, I ordered takeout fried chicken and cola, planning to play a game of Delta Force and maybe block a bridge. Then that damn light appeared, and I ended up in the cultivation world. I didn't get to eat the fried chicken or play Delta Force. 300 years had passed in a flash. Sitting on that hard hotel bed, I suddenly felt a sense of unreality. Was it a dream? 300 years? Sitting on that hard hotel bed, I suddenly felt a sense of unreality. I used my phone to search the news. This world had changed too much. 3 years ago, Blue Star was still an ordinary technological civilization planet. Now it had become a strange mix of semi-cultivation and semi-apocalypse. I turned off my phone and lay down. Exhausted from the day, I fell into a deep sleep. At that moment, I seemed to have a dream. I saw Luo Lingshuan. She stood on a towering mountain peak, the peak of the demon realm, her center of power, the apex of the empire she had built. The night was as dark as ink, the stars brilliant, but those starlights reflected on her white hair, making her face look even paler. She stood there alone, with no subordinates, no attendants, nothing at all. I noticed she was holding something in her hand. It was the Rain Immortal sword. She had been clutching that sword as if holding on to some obsession. Then she lowered her head, tears falling one by one, her lips murmuring something. I was woken up by the phone ringing. Gu Mengyao's voice came through. Chen Huayan. Her voice was a bit unnatural, hesitant, as if choosing her words. I found it. Your aunt moved to Suzhou 2 years ago. Suzhou was invaded by a large-scale beast attack a year ago. The entire city fell. Currently, Suzhou has been classified as an S-level restricted zone by the authorities, completely occupied by large beasts. Communications are cut off, no survivor signals. Is she still alive? Currently, no. Is she still alive? Currently, there's no record of her survival, nor a confirmed death record. But honestly, the probability is low, so right. My hand holding the phone was trembling. Auntie, I struggled for 300 years in the cultivation world just to come back and see you. But I came back, and I put down the phone. I sat there for a long, long time without moving. Memories flooded back like a torrent. When I was sick as a child, my aunt carried me and ran over 10 blocks, just to find a clinic that was still open. Her clothes were soaked with sweat, and her arms holding me were trembling. Back then, she was only 17 or 18 herself, but she was already stubbornly acting like an adult. After school, she would always be waiting for me at the school gate, holding the sugar-roasted chestnuts I loved. In winter, she would want to have a hot bottle before saying that a cold bed would ruin my sleep. On the day of the college entrance exam, she waited outside the exam hall all day, not even eating lunch. She never said she was tired, never said it was hard. I knew how hard it was for her to raise me alone. An unmarried woman, raising a child that wasn't her own. She gave me the best years of her life. A piercing alarm sounded from outside the window. An emergency notification popped up on my phone. Beast invasion alert. Citizens, please immediately take shelter in underground air raid facilities. Again, another beast. But I didn't move. Those instincts for avoidance, rational judgment, the will to survive, were all overwhelmed by more primal, more violent emotion, anger. 300 years. 300 years I endured humiliation, was overwhelmed by more primal, more violent emotion, anger. 300 years. 300 years I endured humiliation. Stooped anything, betrayed everyone just to come back. But I came back, and my family was gone, my home was gone, everything was gone. All that was left were beasts and everywhere. I stood up and walked to the window. The cold wind rushed in, carrying the sounds of explosions and screams from afar. Below the first floor was a drop of over 20 meters. The Hutia was on the 10th floor. I stood up and walked to the window. The cold wind rushed in, carrying the sounds of explosions and screams from afar. Below the first floor was a drop over 20 meters. The Hutia was on the 10th floor. I stood up and walked to the window. I stood on the windowsill. Below was a chaotic street. Beasts were chasing fleeing crowds. But at that moment, I suddenly felt something strange. Something was surging inside me, like a river that had slept for ages, finally starting to thaw. Threads of spiritual energy were automatically flowing from the world into my dantian. A glimmer of water appeared on that dry riverbed. Not much, but cultivation was real. Kai refining stage just one day. When I came back yesterday, my body was purely mortal. Today it's automatically absorbing spiritual energy. As if my former cultivation was slowly reviving, the dantian vessel of the Heavenly Lord realm remains. The old cultivation paths remain. The insights remain. Now I'm just refilling it, and the speed far exceeds normal. Kai refining spiritual energy is insignificant, but with 300 years of insights and techniques, it's enough. I leaped from the 10th floor. The moment I landed, spiritual energy flowed through my legs, absorbing the impact. Before me was the beast pack chasing citizens. Dozens of wolf-shaped beasts, the size of calves at foundation building level. I was at foundation building level. I condensed a transparent, almost illusory spiritual sword, using key refining energy to drive the Heavenly Lord sword art. Felt like a small horse pulling a big cart, but the gap in techniques and insights was enough to bridge the cultivation chasm. As I struck, a silver-white sword aura arced across the night sky. Beautiful like a crescent moon blade. The sword aura swept through, and dozens of wolf beasts froze, then split apart in unison. Dozens of beast corpses crashed to the ground. One sword all destroyed. A few citizens who hadn't fled into the subway station stood frozen in shock, their mouths wide enough to fit an apple. One uncle even forgot he was fleeing, tripped and fell flat on his face. But I didn't stop. More beasts surged from the sky rift. Wolf, snake, eagle forms, many types. But most were at foundation building level. I charged at them like crazy. Every beast I killed, their essence was devoured by me. The spiritual energy in those essences flowed into my dantian, filling that huge vessel. My cultivation soared rapidly. It felt like a desert dried for centuries, suddenly hit by a storm. Every meridian greedily absorbed spiritual energy. I don't know how many I killed, only that when the night ended, my cultivation had stabilized at foundation building peak. My clothes were soaked in beast blood, mixed with my own wounds. Blood flowed from me, fire in my eyes. Little aunt, wait for me wherever you are. I will definitely find you. Over the next few weeks, I hunted beasts at a near crazy pace. By day, I hunted on the city's edge. By night, I cultivated in deserted ruins. My cultivation kept rising. Early golden core, mid golden core, peak golden core. Every breakthrough was incredibly smooth. Lay a path I'd walked before, walking it a second time. Every step was accurate. By the end of the third week, I had reached peak golden core, touching the threshold of nascent soul, equivalent to Blue Star's handsome time. Psychic, I tried to avoid. The Bureau's people didn't want trouble. But what had to come came that evening. The sky over Shanghai City tore open again, but this rift was bigger than any before. Big enough to swallow a whole football field. Black mist churned like boiling Mo River. An unprecedented demonic aura gushed from the rift. I stood 3 kilometers away and still felt that chilling pressure. Nascent soul, no, beyond nascent soul, peak nascent soul, even leaning towards spirit transformation. A massive creature emerged from the rift. It was a giant python, pitch black lying. Its scales reflected an eerie purple luster in the light, thick as a city sewer pipe. Its tail was invisible at least 100 meters. It coiled over Jianghai City. When its forked tongue flicked out, the temperature for miles around plummeted. The scariest part, it spoke. This place has a strong human aura. Good. Speaking human words meant it had developed intelligence. This was a true great demon, and behind it followed countless slightly weaker beasts. The Extreme Demon Bureau mobilized not just Gu Mengyao's Zhanghai City branch. The higher-ups even sent a handsome psychic reinforcement, Ling Tian. Ling Tian was a young man, but his eyes were deep. He'd been through many battles. He radiated a metallic spiritual energy fluctuation. His psychic power formed a huge fire blade. He could even release spiritual pressure. Handsome peak, equivalent to Golden Core peak. But facing this nether python, he was barely holding on. They fought for less than 10 minutes. Ling Tian was hit by the tail. He flew like a cannonball, smashing through 3 buildings. He stopped and spat out blood. He knelt in the ruins, face pale. He was a handsome psychic, but before nascent soul great demon, he was lie paper. The others from the Extreme Demon Bureau were worse off. In this battle, over 100 psychics died on the spot. Some were even cut in half by the giant snake. The severely injured were countless. Where the hell is headquarters reinforcement? This is sending us to die. Where are the healing psychics? Xiao Li, he can't hold on. A blonde youth wept, holding his wounded lover. They were all executives of the Zhanghai City Demon Suppression Bureau. The blood-soaked girl was also his lover. Captain, the medical team is all dead. It wasn't just fear, it was despair. This isn't handsome level, this is imperial level. Before such power, we're just going to die. Captain, should we retreat? The youth wiped his tears, then showed a resolute expression. He tremblingly pulled out a lighter, lit a mosquito coil. You take Xiao Lin and fall back. Protect him. Captain, are you crazy? Comrades, other squads are still fighting bloodily. Behind us are millions of Zhanghai City citizens, tens of millions of people. If we retreat, what about them? Anyone not afraid of death, follow me. Those team members also looked ready to die. On the other side, Gu Mengyao was hit by the tail. She flew sideways for over 10 meters, crashing into an overturned butt. Unconscious, the python lazily lay there, its snake eyes full of amusement. To it, these humans were just ants it could crush with a finger. Boring. Are humans in this world this weak? Killing them has no fun. But the next moment, it saw a man walk out from the shadows. Step by step, he walked before the nether python. His steps were slow, seemingly harmless. The dust on the ruins hadn't settled. Firelight reflected on my profile. Lin Yangmin lowered his head, staring at me. He could sense my cultivation, peak foundation building, an ant in his eyes. But deep in his soul, he felt a chill, as if etched into his sea of consciousness, making the person before him seem familiar. But how could a mere foundation building met his centuries of cultivation? Another one looking for death. I didn't speak. Spiritual energy in my danchin was racing, flowing through a technique path far beyond my current level. This was a secret art I created in my past life. Yellow Spring Heavenly Lord, instant kill, using soul power as a guide, and Heaven Earth spiritual energy as a blade, condensed into a single finger. One finger, lie the Yellow Spring path, all spirits perish. Using peak foundation building energy to drive this secret art. Was lie using a bowl to hold a river. My body would suffer massive backlash. But could I land this strike? Because the key wasn't how much spiritual energy, but how deep my understanding of the Tao was. 300 years of insights, plus the system's infusion was deep enough. The nether python grew impatient. Its tail swung over, a force that could crush a mountain into rubble. I sidestepped, barely dodging. The tail grazed my clothes and hit the ground. The ground for 100 meters collapsed into a deep pit. I flipped 3 times in the air, stabilizing myself. Before landing, my right hand extended its index finger. A faint blue light condensed at the fingertip. That light wasn't brilliant or dazzling, but deep, dark, lay a flame burning in an abyss. The python's pupils shrank sharply. It sensed the tiny, almost negligible light contained a terrifying power that could kill it. Impossible, even with past and present lives. A mere foundation building. Before it finished, my finger pointed out. Yellow spring finger. A deep blue beam shot from my fingertip. It cut through the air with a sharp hum. That sound wasn't light moving, but space itself being torn. The beam's speed was too fast for the eye to catch. The nether python's pupils reflected that light, then its head split open. A torrent of black blood poured like a waterfall. The giant python body lost control, falling from mid-air, crashing onto the city street, kicking up dust for hundreds of meters. A nascent soul great demon killed with one finger. I landed, but my right arm trembled. This was the backlash from forcibly using a high-level technique. My meridians had multiple tiny cracks. A trace of blood seeped from my mouth. The surviving bureau members were all stunned. Ling Tian crawled out of the ruins, covered in dust, his face full of disbelief. He had seen a young man at foundation building level kill with one finger. A nascent soul great demon he couldn't last half a minute against. When did Zhanghai City get such a figure? But before they could recover from the shock, the sky tore up again. This time the rift was bigger and deeper. The aura spilling from the rift made his blood run cold. Earth-level demonic aura. A humanoid figure stepped out of the rift. Dead, stepped out, not crawled. Flying, not rushing, but calmly. With an elegant, condescending demeanor. It was a beast with a humanoid body. Male face features exquisitely eerie, skin pale as jade, eyes were vertical golden snake pupils. He wore pitch black armor, with giant wings covered in deep purple scales on his back, almost covering half the sky. Earth-level beast, Deshishin. I stood still, feeling the terrifying pressure descending from the sky. This level of beast had appeared only a few times on Blue Star, and now it was in little Zhanghai City. Ling Tian's face wasn't just pale, it was deathly white. He had fought countless battles, but never faced an Earth-level existence, because on Blue Star, an Earth-level psychic was only one in all of China, and that one was in the north, fighting another Earth-level beast. In other words, Zhanghai City had no power to deal with this thing. Helicopters still circled overhead, sending the scene via satellite to China's Extreme Demon Bureau headquarters. The command room was dead silent. On the big screen, Deshishin's figure was like a demon god descending. Earth-level, another Earth-level. Why is it appearing in Shanghai City? That's only a sea-level defense city. Contact Chudi in the north. No, it's too late. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the screen. Di Shichen looked down at the city ruins below, and the humans trembling lie ants in the rubble. He smiled. That smile held pure contempt. That spiritual energy fluctuation earlier was somewhat interesting. His gaze fell on me. Did you kill my vanguard? I clenched my fist. My right arm still ached from the yellow spring finger's backlash. The meridian cracks hadn't healed. I hadn't even reached nascent soul. Facing a spirit transformation level earth beast, my chances of winning were near zero. I could easily use techniques to escape. Heavenly Lord level movement insights, combined with foundation building energy, could at least get me out of his tracking range. But I didn't leave, because behind me were still people. There was unconscious Gu Mengyao, injured Ling Tian, and the bureau members who hadn't evacuated. And in this city, countless ordinary people fleeing to underground shelters. But little aunt might still be alive. Little aunt, if I die here, who will find her? But if I escape, what about the people here? I was never a saint. On my 300-year cultivation path, I cheated, betrayed, killed countless, did all kinds of immoral things. But this is Blue Star, the place that raised me. I couldn't turn my back while my own people were dying. Maybe because of what little aunt taught me since I was young. YN, be a person with a conscience. Di Shichen seemed displeased by my silence. Ants, you humans are nothing special. I, this lord, descend to this realm by order of the supreme existence. I thought there'd be some fun. But it's so boring. Supreme existence, what does that mean? These beasts aren't randomly descending from dimensional rifts. They were ordered here? By whom? I had no time to think about these questions because Di Shichen moved. Not that he was too fast to see, but he simply vanished from my sight. The next instant, he appeared beside me. I'm talking to you. A world-destroying force struck from my right. My body was hit by a giant hand, flying like a cannonball. Through countless buildings, finally embedded in the fourth wall. In the fourth wall, I spat out a mouthful of blood. Several ribs in my chest were broken. Internal organs shifted, meridians shattered. Is this all you've got? Di Shishen's voice came from afar, full of disappointment. I pulled myself out of the wall's crater, staggering to my feet, vision blurry. My mouth was full of blood, but my mind was clear. Spirit transformation mid-stage. With my current cultivation and state, a frontal fight is impossible. But who said I have to fight head-on? I wiped the blood from my mouth and smiled. Di Shichen raised an eyebrow. A dying man is still smiling? He didn't attack immediately, as if wanting to see what tricks this and had. I began to burn my lifespan. This was a forbidden technique, using life as a cost. To burst out power far beyond my limits in a short time. Normal cultivators' burning lifespan could only rise 1 or 2 minor realms, but I wasn't a normal cultivator. My Danshin vessel was Heavenly Lord level. My technique understanding was Heavenly Lord level. I just lacked spiritual energy. And burning lifespan could convert life force into spiritual energy. Trade life for power, fight life with life. In my Danshin, a scorching force erupted like a volcano. Autumn to early golden core, mid golden core, peak golden core, early nascent soul, still rising, mid nascent soul, peak nascent soul. That was the limit. Any more wouldn't be burning lifespan, but self-destruction. Peak nascent soul against spirit transformation mid-stage. A whole major realm gap plus 2 minor realms. It still seemed like certain death, but it was enough for that one sword strike. I could condense all my spiritual energy, gathering it into my right hand. An illusory long sword formed in my palm. The sword took shape in my hand. It looked like the immortal sword, transparent, with a faint silver-white glow. This was my past life's lifebound sword art. Falling star, sacrificing attack range. To condense all power into a single point, one sword strike. Leia star falling, unbreakable until done. Di Shichen finally sensed something wrong. He felt the terrifying power in that illusory sword. Not nascent soul level power. What the hell is that? His face finally showed shock. But it was just surprise. As a spirit transformation old monster, how could he not have a trump card? But just as I was about to strike, the sky tore open, not lay before. The entire sky was ripped apart. Time on Blue Star seemed to freeze. A galaxy spanning the sky burst from the heavens. Starlight brilliant, like a silver waterfall, pouring down from the 9 heavens. I would never forget that moment. The pressure surging from that galaxy, vast enough to make one despair, terrifying enough to make the soul tremble. Everyone was pinned down, unable to move. Ling Tian fell to his knees, spitting blood. Unconscious Gu Mengyao's body convulsed uncontrollably. Ordinary people fainted 100 kilometers away. Even Di Shichen, a spirit transformation earth-level beast, his face showed a fear seeping from his bones. Because he knew what level of power this was. Not spirit transformation, not void refining. He recognized this aura, the highest level of power in this universe. From the galaxy, a figure slowly walked out. At that moment, China's headquarters helicopter signaled out, cleanly, as if cut by an invisible force. Not just China, but all of Blue Star's networks, satellites, communications, electromagnetic signals went down. All electronic screens turned to static. All radars went blank, as if someone had pressed the mute button on the entire planet. And at that moment, from the galaxy, a figure stepped out on starlight. He wore a dark magic-patterned robe, with black and red patterns flowing like burning blood. His hair was white as snow, gleaming cold silver in the starlight. His face was pale, almost transparent, exquisitely not of this world. A crimson magic mark on his brow, lay a third eye, or an eternally blooming blood flower. Cold, violent, mad. Yet with a heartbreaking loneliness, he hovered in midair, the demonic aura around him, dyeing the sky for hundreds of miles dark red. His eyes swept over this strange steel jungle, tall buildings, roads, cars, lights, things completely foreign to him. Then his gaze looked down. He saw ruins, saw blood, saw Di Shichen. Finally, he saw me, covered in blood in the mess, staggering. Time seemed to stop at that moment. Our eyes met across 1,000 meters, across 2 worlds, time and space. His eyes held shock, surprise, and an indescribable, complex emotion beyond any words. And an indescribable, complex emotion beyond any words. That emotion, I had seen it 300 years ago when I first met him, when he was 5, when I carried him out of that thatched hut. The first time he opened his eyes and looked at me, that was the same look. Lay in the abyss of despair, suddenly seeing a beam of light. Dishishin, under this destructive pressure, couldn't even stand. His legs trembled. His eyes full of fear. This fear born from the soul's depths couldn't be resisted by cultivation or power, because this wasn't the same level of existence. He wanted to speak, to beg, to threaten, to run anything. But he couldn't even open his mouth. Lu Lingshuang didn't even glance at him. From the moment she saw me, she never looked away. Then a sword light spilled from the galaxy. Just a faint, the lightest ink stroke. That sword light pierced through space, through Dishishin's domain, protective demonic aura, physical defenses, through everything. Dishishin's body stiffened, then shattered like a broken mirror. Not even ash remained. A spirit transformation Earth-level beast didn't even get a direct look from this mysterious woman, wiped out like crushing an ant. All the survivors, no one dared to speak, not because they didn't want to. I couldn't speak, crushed by that heavenly lord's oppressive pressure. Even breathing became a luxury. Lin Tian lay on the ground, his bones creaked loudly. He felt like he was being flattened into a meat patty. He struggled to lift his head. Through the blood, he raised his head. Through his blood-caked eyes, he looked at the figure in the sky. What kind of monster is this? This is no longer Earth level. This surpassed every rank he knew. And Luo Lingshuang finally moved. She descended from the sky. I smelled her scent. Still that cold, fierce fragrance of plum blossoms in the cold air. 300 years. He hasn't changed at all. I collapsed weakly in the ruins, covered in blood, looking at him pitifully. I barely forced a smile. Lingshuang, she knelt down. The supreme demon sovereign, the heavenly lord, the demon empress, knelt among the rubble. She knelt before me. She frantically poured spiritual power into my body. Her hands were shaking. Her tears slid down that pale, cold face, which had shown no weakness in front of anyone for 300 years. 1 drop, 2 drops, then countless drops. Like a cry that had been suppressed for far too long, finally bursting its banks completely at that moment. Do you know how long I've been looking for you? Time goes back to the Luoyang continent, back to the moment my remnant soul dissipated, and my soul was sent back to Blue Star by the system. He cried for a day and a night at Henxiafeng, cried until his tears dried up and his voice went hoarse, as if he had been completely drained. The truth he saw from the elder's memories, and that weak apology in the Yushi immortal sword, drove 2 blades, one after the other, into his heart. 300 years of hatred. 300 years of resentment collapsed in an instant, replaced by an emotion 1,000 times more painful than hatred. He personally killed the one who had always protected her, replaced by an emotion 1,000 times more painful than hatred. He personally killed the one who had always protected her. He personally killed the senior brother who pulled her from the abyss and watched over her in the shadows for 300 years. Lingshuang, don't be so senior brother Lingshuang. But senior brother is gone. That gentle voice, that hand that always ruffled her hair, that person who would hold her in a blizzard and say, don't be afraid, he was gone, lay a wisp of smoke. She thought of following him, holding the hateful life sword, and placing it against her own neck. Just a light cut, and it would be over. Then she could go find senior brother. But just at that moment, a voice sounded in her sea of consciousness. Old, profound. A voice that seemed to span endless ages. He is not dead. Luo Lingshuang's hand trembled, and the sword almost fell. He just went to another world. Do you want to find him? Dead, of course. No matter how far. No matter the end of the starry sea, I will find him, even if it costs me my life. So she made a crazy decision. She abandoned the demon realm. She abandoned the empire she had built, countless demon cultivators who followed her, and the supreme authority of the Luoyang continent. She gave it all up. She only wanted to find Shen Huayan. With the cultivation of a heavenly lord, she tore through the dimensional barrier of the Luoyang continent and stepped into the boundless starry sea. But the starry sea is vast and endless. Dimensional worlds are as numerous as grains of sand, uncountable. How could she search? No direction, no clues. Only a vague message left by that voice. Follow the thread of karma. The thread of karma between her and Shen Huayan. The thread of karma. The bond of 300 years between her and Shen Huayan formed an extremely faint, cross-dimensional thread of karma. As a heavenly lord, she could barely sense the direction of this thread, so she pursued it one dimension after another. Each dimensional crossing in the starry sea was accompanied by terrifying temporal turbulence. That power could tear apart the flesh and soul of a powerful cultivator. Even she, a heavenly lord, could not escape it. During the first crossing, her right arm was torn apart by the temporal turbulence. Blood turned into a red mist in the void. She gritted her teeth and reattached her broken arm, continuing forward. During the second crossing, she mistakenly entered a barren dimensional world and was seen as an invader by that world's heavenly Tao, suffering a devastating rejection. Heavenly tribulation descended, ninefold thunder punishment. She endured it with all her might. The cost was a third of her meridians shattered. Third, fourth, fifth time. Countless times, each crossing was a gamble with her life. In a dimension called Chaotic Star Sea, she was ambushed by 3 ancient heavenly lord-level experts. That dimension's rules were extremely cruel. Survival of the fittest was the only law. She fought alone against 3 heavenly lords. The battle lasted 7 days and 7 nights. She won, but she was nearly half dead. Her demonic patterns shattered, white hair dyed red with blood. Her luxurious demon lord battle robe was tattered beyond recognition. She floated there in the void of the Chaotic Star Sea, covered in wounds, her consciousness fading, but she did not stop, because that thread of karma was still faintly, barely guiding her. In one direction, an increasingly distant direction, she kept going. One dimension after another. Time in the temporal turbulence was distorted. Perhaps only a few days had passed on Blue Star, but the time she experienced was a full 1,000 years. She traveled alone through the endless starry sea and dimensions for 1,000 years. In that 1,000 years, her cultivation was honed through countless life and death battles to the limit of the heavenly lord realm. In that 1,000 years, her appearance did not change at all, but the light in her eyes changed. No longer hatred, no longer madness, but a nearly obsessive fixation. Find him. I must find him, no matter the cost. On a certain day of that 1,000th year, the thread of karma suddenly became strong, so strong that her entire soul trembled. She tore open the final dimensional barrier and saw a blue planet. sensed a familiar aura that made her want to cry. Then she saw him bathed in blood in that ruin, on the verge of death, facing a transformation god-level demon beast. He could have run away at any time, but he stood there like a fool, ready to fight to the death. Just lay before, always lie this, always pushing himself to the brink of death. At that moment, the tears she had held back for 1,000 years finally burst forth. Senior brother, why did you lie to Ling Shuang? Please don't leave. Ling Shuang wants to answer him, but I couldn't speak. My body couldn't hold on anymore. That strike from Deshishin shattered most of my internal organs, plus the backlash from burning my lifespan. At this moment, I'm like a lamp. At this moment, I'm like an oil lamp about to burn out. My consciousness is blurring, my vision fading. The last thing I saw was her reddened eyes and the center of her brow, that crimson demonic pattern. After the light broadcast signal was restored, everyone only knew that Earth-level demon beast was instantly killed by a mysterious force. Besides a few surviving members of the base bureau at the scene, that mysterious young man and the white-haired woman had both disappeared. Lin Tian, trembling all over, got up, looking at the already healed crack in the sky. His lips trembled for a long time before he could squeeze out a sentence. What kind of monster was that? I was woken up by warm liquid dripping on my face. Opening my eyes, dim light, a wooden ceiling. The air had a scent of grass and wood, mixed with a cold plum blossom fragrance I knew well. I turned my head, my whole body ached. Bones, organs, meridians, everything hurt. But at least I was alive. Then I saw her. Luo Ling Shuang was lying beside me, her head resting on the edge of the bed, white hair scattered all over the bed, contrasting with her pale face. She was asleep, tear stains still on her face, the look of someone who cried until she was exhausted and fell asleep. Her hand, slender and almost transparently white, was tightly gripping my sleeve, gripping it very tightly, as if afraid that if she let go, I would disappear again. I looked at her for a long time, so long that the light outside the window went from dim to bright. This was a small wooden cabin. The walls were made of logs. There was a window, a bed, a simple built. There was a window, a bed. There was a simple table. Outside the window was a dense forest. I could hear birds and see trim, far from the city, far from everything. She must have conjured it with the means of a heavenly lord. Conjuring a small wooden cabin out of thin air was no big deal. I tried to sense my own body. The cultivation I had recovered from burning my lifespan was all exhausted in the fight with Deshishin. Now I was back to being a low-level cultivator. But Blue Star's spiritual energy was slowly seeping into my body, nourishing my damaged meridians and organs. Slowly, but it was recovering. I looked down at Lu Ling Shuang. Her demonic patterned robe had many tears, not from the fight with Deshishin, more like signs of long-term wear from traveling in harsh environments. Her hands had several healed scars. How could a heavenly lord-level cultivator have healed scars, unless those wounds were so severe that even a heavenly lord's regenerative power couldn't fully erase them? I don't know what she went through, but just those scars were enough to make me afraid to think about it. She woke up, probably sensing my gaze. Her eyelashes fluttered, slowly opening, meeting my eyes. We just looked at each other quietly. Then she suddenly sat up, flustered. The mighty heavenly lord, the demon empress, now blushing, panicked, not knowing where to put her hands. You're awake. Are you hungry? Ling Shuang's body froze, as if she was petrified. After a long while, she slowly turned her head. Ling Shuang's body froze, as if she was petrified. After a long while, she slowly turned her head, tears glistening in her eyes. You know everything. She didn't speak, just slowly crouched down. Crouched by my bed, burying her face in her arms, her shoulders shaking. It's hard to say. Ling Shuang was wrong. Ling Shuang shouldn't have hated senior brother. Ling Shuang killed senior brother. Ling Shuang deserves to die. I reached out and placed my hand on her head. Her body trembled, then froze as if this touch, the feeling of this hand on her head, awakened some distant memory. 300 years ago, every time she cried from a nightmare, I would put my hand on her head like this and say, "Don't be afraid, senior brother is here." Now, 300 years later, my hand was still in that same place. She cried, from muffled sobs to uncontrollable wails. A full 300 years of grievance, regret, longing, and fear, all poured out at this moment. I didn't speak, just stroked her hair again and again. Just lay before. She cried for a very long time, so long that the sun outside slowly set. When she finally finished crying and looked up at me with swollen eyes, my sleeve was soaked through with her tears. Senior brother, Nin, why didn't you tell me sooner? I couldn't. Some things can't be said until the end. Is it that thing called the system? How do you know about the system? From the soul search. How do you know about the system? During the soul search, I saw some things in that elder's memories. Scenes of you talking to something invisible. Though I couldn't see that thing, I could feel you receiving some kind of command. Date, the system, the thing that threw me onto the Loyan continent. It gave me tasks. If I completed them, I could return to Blue Star, return to my world. All the tasks, including betraying the sect, allying with the demon path, stealing the immortal sword, and even dying by your hand in the end. It was all arranged by it. Then what about what you did for Ling Shuang? Protecting, giving Ling Shuang opportunities. Those weren't arranged by the system. Those were my own choices. Every single time, her tears were about to fall again. I quickly added, "Don't cry anymore. If you do, I won't have any clothes left to change." She let out a small laugh. Halfway through, she choked it back, turning into a strange expression, half crying, half laughing, really ugly, but also really beautiful. After that, we talked a lot. I told her everything. The system, the crossing, Blue Star, little aunt, everything. She listened quietly, without interrupting. After she finished listening, she was silent for a long time. Then she said something that surprised me. That voice that guided Ling Shuang to find you. What if it's also part of this setup? What do you mean? Ling Shuang traveled through the Starry Sea for 1,000 years. Traveled for 1,000 years. Each time I tore a dimensional barrier, it consumed enormous power, and each time a dimension was torn, the wall between two worlds became thinner. If there is something that wants to use Ling Shuang to open a passage between two worlds, that voice would be the perfect bait. A chill ran down my spine. What she said made sense. Too much sense. That mysterious voice that guided her to find me, old and profound, as if from ancient times, if it wasn't kindly giving directions, but guiding her with a purpose. What was the purpose? To make Ling Shuang, a heavenly lord, keep tearing dimensional barriers, to open a passage for some entity to descend on Blue Star. This speculation made me shiver, but now wasn't the time to investigate that. The most important thing now was to find little aunt. I told Ling Shuang the situation. She said one thing. When Ling Shuang first arrived on Blue Star, she scanned thousands of miles with her divine sense. That city you mentioned, Sicheng, the surface is indeed occupied by demon beasts, but there are human auras underground. Still alive, are you sure? Dead. Though blocked by some kind of spiritual barrier, Ling Shuang's divine sense can penetrate it. At least 1,000 people are underground. Whether your little aunt is among them, Ling Shuang can't tell. But since there are survivors, there's hope. Hope. At that moment, those two words were more effective than any miracle medicine. Over the next few months, I stayed in that small cabin, recovering and cultivating. Ling Shuang's cultivation was suppressed to the soul-refining realm by Blue Star's heavenly Tao. She shielded 100 miles with her divine sense. No living creature could enter this area. The ruthless demon empress of the demon realm had now become a little wife taking care of a mortal husband. Because I was indeed almost like immortal now, she cooked for me every day, trying different things, though she couldn't cook at all. Everything she made was basically a disaster, but she wouldn't let me say it was bad. She changed my bandages, though her hand's strength wasn't well controlled. She'd accidentally tighten the gauze, making me wince. She stayed by my side when I cultivated, though she couldn't do anything. She just had to be there, sitting next to me, for the whole day. Sometimes I'd sneak a look at her. She'd take the chance when I wasn't looking to reach out and touch my hair, then quickly pull her hand back. With a stiff expression like she did nothing. This 1,300-year-old demon lord was really cute. Days passed like this. Blue Star's spiritual energy density far exceeded my expectations. My body kept absorbing spiritual energy. My cultivation steadily climbed. By the third month, I had reached the peak of the Golden Core realm, equivalent to a martial level Esper on Blue Star. The recovery speed was incredibly fast. After all, I had the vessel of a heavenly lord. I just needed to fill it with spiritual energy. My body was mostly healed. It was time to set out. Sicheng was about 800 kilometers from Jianghai City. It was once a prosperous coastal city. About 800 kilometers from Jianghai City. It was once a prosperous coastal city, with a population of over 1 million. Now it was a dead city. Ling Shuang and I looked down from the sky. The entire city was covered in demon beast nests. The outer walls of skyscrapers were covered in black, fungal growths. The streets were piled with abandoned vehicles and unknown remains. The air was filled with a foul stench of decay and demonic energy. Occasionally, demon beasts could be seen roaming the ruins, martial level and emperor level ones, but they were all nothing in front of Ling Shuang. Every demon beast we encountered on the way, whether it was a mutated giant bear at martial level or an abyss demon at emperor level, was all killed with a single finger flip. When we reached the core area of Sicheng, she finally had a clearer sense. Underground, 800 meters down, there was a space isolated by spiritual power. We directly broke through the ground and drilled down. 800 meters underground was a vast, man-made space, a modified giant underground laboratory. The lights were dim, but many simple shelters and living areas could be seen, and people, over 1,000 people, they looked at us with terrified eyes. As Ling Shuang and I descended from the hole in the ceiling, especially Ling Shuang, in her dark, demonic patterned robe with snow-white hair and a crimson demonic pattern on her brow, to these ordinary people, she looked no different from ancient demons and monsters. Espers, intruders, full alert. A man in his 30s rushed to the front. He wore a uniform so dirty its color was unrecognizable. His face was tired, but his eyes were sharp. A faint, sharp light glowed on his hands. Martial level sharp light. Martial level Esper Xiao Wenyuan, once a police officer. After the demon beast invasion, he awakened a spiritual isolation talent. It was his talent that isolated this entire underground city from the surface, allowing over 1,000 survivors to escape the demon beast's search. But the cost was enormous spiritual energy consumption. He looked extremely weak now. His face was pale. Clearly, his spiritual energy was nearly depleted. We're not enemies. Who are you? How did you get in? My name is Chen Huayan. I'm looking for someone. My little aunt Jiang Yixu. She might be among you. Xiao Wenyuan was stunned. Jiang Yixu? You mean that woman who was always asking about her missing nephew? My heart skipped a beat. She's here? My little aunt is alive. Take me to her. Wait a moment. How did you get through my spiritual isolation? Xiao Wenyuan's eyes were fixed on Ling Shuang, though she had disguised and suppressed her cultivation to the nascent soul realm, the level of an emperor-level esper. Xiao Wenyuan still felt an indescribable pressure. His instincts told him this woman was not simple, far from just being emperor level, because she was strong. I answered simply. Xiao Wen. Yuan was silent for a few seconds. Finally, he didn't ask further. He led us through the underground city's passages. Twisting and turning, we came to a small room in a corner. Right here, I took a deep breath. Push open the door. The room was very small. Only a simple bed and a chair. A woman was sitting on the bed. Push open the door. The room was very small. Only a simple bed and a chair. A woman was sitting on the bed. She had lost so much weight, but I recognized those eyes from childhood. Every morning when she woke me up, every night when she tucked me in, every time she went to parent-teacher meetings, those eyes were always looking at me, smiling. Little aunt. She looked up. The moment she saw me, her whole body trembled. Why, Huayan? Is it me, little aunt? I'm back. She was stunned for several seconds. Then she lunged off the bed, threw herself into my arms, sobbing loudly. You're back. You're alive. Where have you been? Little aunt has been looking for you for 3 years. I thought you were gone. She cried and pounded my chest. Not hard, but each hit struck my heart. I'm sorry, little aunt. I'm sorry. Behind me, Lu Lingshuang stood quietly. Watching this scene, her eyes also reddened. Later, after little aunt calmed down, I introduced Lu Lingshuang to her. Little aunt, this is Lingshuang. She is my Dao companion. Oh no. Girlfriend. Luo Lingshuang's eyes widened. What is a girlfriend? But she still knew what a Dao companion meant. No, when did she ever agree to that wicked senior brother? But in front of Auntie, he couldn't argue. Auntie took Luo Lingshuang's hand, looked her up and down for a long time. Then, with reddened eyes, she smiled. So beautiful. Waiyan is truly blessed. Luo Lingshuang's face flushed red. The mighty demon empress of the demon realm. Luo Lingshuang's face flushed red. The mighty demon empress of the demon realm was blushing from being praised by Immortal aunt. That, Auntie? She stammered. Then Auntie laughed out loud. Good child. I watched this scene from the side. A warmth filled my heart. This was probably the warmest moment in 300 years. Auntie, you're safe now? But the 1,000 survivors in Sioux City couldn't stay underground forever. Xiao Wenyuan's spiritual energy was nearly depleted. His barrier ability could vanish at any moment. Once the barrier is gone, the surface beasts will swarm in. We must clear the beasts from Sioux City. Leave this to me and Luo Lingshuang. Luo Lingshuang suppressed her cultivation to the nascent soul level. Any higher would attract unwanted attention. Even so, the beasts in Sioux City were nothing but chickens and dogs before her. I fought alongside her. It took us 3 days to wipe out all the beasts on Sioux City's surface. Hundreds of them, big and small. Even the royal level beast entrenched in the city center was slain by our combined efforts. Xiao Wenyuan watched from afar. His mouth opened and closed, then opened again. What kind of monsters are these two people? After the purge, I contacted Gu Mengyao. Sioux City is safe. There are over 1,000 survivors needing evacuation. There was silence on the other end for several seconds. What? You said Sioux City? The Sioux City designated as an S-level restricted zone? Are you kidding me? There are at least 3 royal-level beasts there. The higher-ups don't even dare to send people. Just come pick us up when you're done. A long silence, then a sigh. Fine, I'll send the vehicles. When Gu Mengyao came to pick them up, she brought 20 military trucks. She saw Luo Lingshuang, stared for a long time, then her gaze turned subtle. This woman with white hair and demonic markings, that suffocating aura, matched the description of the mysterious woman who appeared over Jianghai City that day, as told by Lin Tian. Gu Mengyao didn't call it out, but the way she looked at me changed, from curiosity to scrutiny. What exactly is the background of this man and this woman? I asked her to keep our existence a secret. She agreed. The 1,000 survivors were safely transferred to Jianghai City. I rented a house in Jianghai City to settle Auntie down. On the first day Auntie moved into the new house, she pulled me and Luo Lingshuang to sit down. She rambled on with a bunch of advice. Stay safe, okay? Don't always be fighting and killing. Eat well, don't stay up late. Then she looked at me, then at Luo Lingshuang. Waiyan, this girl is really good to you. You must not let her down. Hurry up and get the important stuff done. What important stuff? What else? Get married. I nearly spat out my water. Luo Lingshuang was even more dramatic. She stood up, her face red to the neck. With him. She stammered for a long time without finishing a single sentence. A 1,300-year-old demon empress, being urged to marry by Immortal aunt, urged into incoherence. I held back my laughter, not daring to let it out. In the days that followed, I and Luo Lingshuang lived in Jianghai City. Dare to laugh? In the days that followed, I and Luo Lingshuang settled down in Jianghai City. She learned to use a phone, though she always mixed up WeChat and the camera. She learned to use a washing machine. The first time, she poured in a whole bottle of detergent. Foam overflowed from the washing machine, flooding half the balcony. She also learned to watch TV. Her favorite was Animal World, because those little beasts were so stupid. Sometimes at night, she would sneak close to me when she thought I was asleep and gently plant a kiss on my cheek, then quickly pull back, acting as if nothing happened. But she didn't know I was always awake. After 1,300 years of longing, she was still so cautious, as if afraid of scaring away something precious. The peaceful days didn't last long. Spiritual energy recovery was accelerating. Spiritual veins all over land seemed to have their switches flipped on, madly gushing out spiritual energy. Heavenly anomalies occurred frequently. Colorful clouds covered the sun. Spiritual springs dried up. Earth veins cracked. Scenes that only appeared in ancient times popped up one after another. Ancient cultivators, hidden for millennia, emerged from seclusion. Kunlun Mountain, Dragon Tiger Mountain, Shangnan Mountain. These legendary cultivation holy lands suddenly produced a large number of reclusive masters. Most of them were of righteous cultivation, ranging from nascent soul to unity. But there was also a batch sealed deep in Land Xing's earth veins. Ancient demonic cultivators who awakened with them. They were being sealed by the righteous path in ancient times. Now, the seals loosened due to the surge in spiritual energy. Their first act upon seeing the light of day, seize spiritual veins and enslave mortals. The official demon suppression bureau, in front of these true cultivators, was as fragile as paper. A demonic cultivator calling himself the blood-robed ancestor, at the void refining stage, struck first. He occupied a spiritual vein near Jianghai City, slaughtering the demon suppression bureau squad stationed there. Gu Mengyao and old Marshal Zheng Yuan were severely injured. Xiao Wenyuan fought desperately to cover their retreat, losing an arm in the process. When the news came, I and Luo Lingshuang were having dinner. Auntie had made braised pork ribs. I put down my chopsticks. Luo Lingshuang also put down her chopsticks. Auntie called from behind, "You haven't finished eating." "Sorry, Auntie. I'll eat the ribs when I get back." When we arrived at the spiritual veins location, the blood-robed ancestor was sitting cross-legged above it, absorbing spiritual energy. Around him lay the bodies of over a dozen demon suppression bureau members. Young faces, twisted expressions. They probably suffered greatly before death. The blood-robed ancestor sensed our arrival. He opened his eyes, looked at my golden core, peak spiritual fluctuation, then at Luo Lingshuang, strong demonic aura on her. He revealed a playful smile. "Little girl, you also cultivate the demonic path?" He stood up, his blood-red robe rustling in the night wind. The pressure of the void refining stage was released overwhelmingly. "Kneel and acknowledge me as your master, and I'll spare your life." Luo Lingshuang's face was expressionless. She glanced at him just one glance. Then she said one word, "Die." She didn't make a move. She didn't even release any visible technique or spell. She just released a wisp of true heavenly sovereign level demon lord pressure. The blood-robed ancestor's smile froze on his face. That wisp of true heavenly sovereign level demon lord pressure. The blood-robed ancestor's smile froze on his face. His body began to tremble uncontrollably. He fell to his knees with a thud. His Dao heart shattered directly under that pressure. A void refining stage before a heavenly sovereign stage. He didn't even have the right to look up. Who are you? He couldn't even form a complete sentence. Luo Lingshuang pointed a finger. The blood-robed ancestor's body, along with his primordial spirit, turned to ash, scattering in the night wind, clean and efficient. No loose ends. I watched this scene from the side, as expected of a demon lord, my little junior sister. But Luo Lingshuang pouted, seeming dissatisfied with that title. Oh, right. As expected of my wife, she pinched me hard. Then satisfied, she took my arm. After this battle, I and Luo Lingshuang took the opportunity to clean up the blood-robed ancestor's remaining forces. Those ancient demonic cultivators who awakened with him were either destroyed or knelt in surrender. And in the process of constantly hunting beasts and absorbing spiritual energy from veins, my cultivation had recovered to the nascent soul peak. Gu Mengyao and Xiao Wenyuan witnessed the citywide purge firsthand. Xiao Wenyuan's broken arm was casually reattached by Luo Lingshuang. She used a bone-setting technique that was extremely common in the Luoyang continent, leaving Xiao Wenyuan dumbfounded. Gu Mengyao finally couldn't help but ask that question. Who exactly are you people? I looked at Luo Lingshuang. She glanced back at me, giving silent permission, so I gave Gu Mengyao and Xiao Wenyang a rough explanation, omitting too many details. I only said I came from another cultivation world with a cultivation level far beyond Lansing's rankings. Luo Lingshuang's eyes, their expressions were like they'd seen a ghost. In the end, Gu Mengyao didn't report it. Instead, she reached a private agreement with me. She would cover for our existence on the official level, and I would handle threats the Demon Suppression Bureau couldn't deal with. Xiao Wenyuan became one of my few trusted comrades on Lansing. This guy, though not highly cultivated, was upright and reliable. I began secretly guiding his cultivation, but some things you can't keep low-key even if you want to. A few days later, an old man came to the door. White hair, white beard, and immortal air. His spiritual fluctuation was at the unity stage. One of the strongest cultivators on Lansing, the Kunlun Elder. He was polite but direct. I'm not here to visit. I'm here to warn you. He looked at Luo Lingshuang, his gaze filled with deep concern. Outsider. Your existence is accelerating the change of this world's heavenly Tao. This is not a good thing. It's a sign that Lansing's heavenly Tao itself is weakening. If you don't leave the day the heavenly Tao collapses, all living things will perish. Luo Lingshuang looked at him coldly, without response. I stepped between them. Senior, give us some time. I'll investigate the cause. The Kunlun Elder sighed. I have lived for 3,000 years, and never seen the heavenly Tao so fragile. If you don't find the truth soon, all living things in this world will be buried with it. He finished speaking and turned to leave. I and Luo Lingshuang exchanged a glance. It seemed a bigger storm was still ahead. Less than 3 days after the Kunlun Elder left, trouble came. In the earth veins of Changbai Mountain, a terrifying demonic aura shot into the sky, melting all the snow within 100 miles. The ancient guardian spirit beast nurtured by Lansing's heavenly Tao, the nine-tailed fox, had awakened. She transformed into human form, a stunningly beautiful woman. 9 silver-white tails spread behind her Lia Fen. At the peak of the unity stage, just below Heavenly Sovereign, she sensed Luo Lingshuang's aura and appeared directly. Her purpose wasn't to provoke, but to question. Outsider. Your existence is eroding the foundation of this world's heavenly Tao. As Lansing's guardian spirit beast, I will not stand idly by. A great battle was inevitable. The nine-tailed fox was extremely powerful. Her illusions were unpredictable and cunning. Even though Luo Lingshuang's cultivation was suppressed to the void refining stage by Lansing's heavenly Tao, her heavenly sovereign level Tao foundation was still far beyond ordinary. Their battle tore apart the sky for 100 miles. I fought from the side, specifically countering the nine-tailed fox's illusions. My heavenly sovereign level primordial spirit perception allowed me to clearly distinguish truth from falsehood. During the fight, I noticed the nine-tailed fox had no killing intent. Her attacks all held back, more light testing and warning. I stopped Luo Lingshuang. Wait, she doesn't mean to kill you. Luo Lingshuang frowned but still withdrew her hand. The nine-tailed fox panted, her silver tails drooping slightly. Indeed, I just wanted to see how much this outsider is worth. Then came something even more troublesome. The ancient Taudi in the northwestern desert also awakened. At the unity stage, its instinct was to devour everything. It devoured the spiritual veins of several small cities along the way, heading straight for Luo Lingshuang's aura. I and Luo Lingshuang joined forces to stop. This battle was far more brutal than the one with the nine-tailed fox. The Taudi was a pure combat beast, the kind that didn't reason. In the end, I communicated with it using my heavenly sovereign Tao fortune and managed to calm it down. Both ancient beasts were guardians nurtured by Lansing's heavenly Tao. They didn't awaken to attack Luo Lingshuang. They sensed that Lansing's heavenly Tao was being eroded by some external force and instinctively saw Luo Lingshuang as a threat. The nine-tailed fox told me a key piece of information. Lansing's heavenly Tao wasn't naturally weakening. It was being drained. Every time a dimensional rift appeared, it took away a part of Lansing's heavenly Tao's origin. And the first time these rifts appeared, she looked at me, was exactly 3 years ago. 3 years ago, the moment I crossed over, I and Luo Lingshuang exchanged a look. Both of our faces turned grim. The crossing, the system, the tasks, Luo Lingshuang's 1,000-year search, all seemingly coincidental events strung together, formed a terrifying outline. That system was never just an auxiliary tool. It used me, and it used Luo Lingshuang. Every time it tore through dimensional barriers, it was opening a passage for some entity to descend onto Lansing. I shared my deduction with Luo Lingshuang. She was silent for a long time. That voice that guided Lingshuang to find you, if it was also part of the system? The answer was on the tip of our tongues. I found the answer in a spiritual eye at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean, a deliberately hidden spatial anchor point. The aura on the anchor point was exactly the mark the system left inside me. It hadn't disappeared. It had transferred to the core of Lansing's heavenly Tao, like a nail driven into Lansing's lifeline, continuously draining its origin. The truth was clear. The system's true identity was the heavenly Tao will of the Luoyang continent. The Tao fortune of the Luoyang heavenly Tao had been declining over billions of years. It needed to devour the heavenly Tao of other worlds to sustain itself. Lansing became its target. I was the pawn it chose. The system used tasks to drive me, making me accumulate karma on the Luoyang continent, then sending me back to Lansing through death as an anchor point. Luo Lingshuang's 1,000-year search was the key. Every time she tore through a dimensional barrier, she was ripping a larger passage for the Luoyang heavenly Tao. That mysterious voice was from start to finish the work of the Luoyang heavenly Tao. The moment I pulled out the anchor point, the sky changed. A golden crack split open across the sky above the Pacific Ocean, 10,000 times larger than the passage Luo Lingshuang had torn open. A pressure so vast it was despairing poured out from the crack. It wasn't the power of any living being, but the will of an entire world's heavenly Tao manifesting. The Luoyang heavenly Tao's true form had arrived. It had no fixed form, just a golden chaos that devoured light, covering half the sky. Every living being on Lansing felt that suffocating pressure. Mortals fainted. Low-level cultivator spat blood. Lansing's heavenly Tao was at its last gasp. Devouring this world is my only choice. The suppression on Lu Lingshuang's cultivation disappeared at that moment. Lansing's heavenly Tao was too weak to maintain any shackles. All the power of the heavenly sovereign stage returned to her body. Her demonic markings bloomed with terrifying blood-red light. She gripped the hateful life sword tightly. She stood by my side. Senior brother, this time Ling Shuang is with you. The most brutal battle in Lansing's history began. The nine-tailed fox and the Toki came out in full force. The guardian spirit beasts, on the brink of Lansing's heavenly Tao's destruction, unleashed their final power. The Kunlun Elder led all the ancient righteous cultivators of Lansing in forming a defensive formation. Xiao Wenyuan and Gu Mengyao led the demon suppression bureau in evacuating mortals. But the true main battlefield belonged to only two people. I and Lu Lingshuang stood shoulder to shoulder. 300 years of dependence, 300 years of enmity, 1,000 years of separation. Now, finally, we stood on the same side. The Luoyan heavenly Tao tried to break our will. Stealing the immortal sword, pulling within my path, deliberately in her way. See, he used you. Luo Lingshuang slashed those illusions apart with her sword. My hatred and love are not for you to meddle with. Then it showed me the bloody scene of Luo Lingshuang's 1,000 years of slaughter. The sects she destroyed, the cultivators she killed, the rivers of blood. See? She's no longer the little junior sister you knew. I laughed. I know what she is myself. I don't need you to remind me. I am a righteous Tao Immortal, but my wife is a demon lord. What good thing could I possibly be? The Luoyan heavenly Tao's assault was overwhelming. The golden chaos, like a raging sea, crashed in wave after wave. Each wave contained enough terrifying power to destroy an entire world. In the battle, I struggled to hold on. The framework of my heavenly sovereign stage in my primordial theory began to resonate violently under the infusion of Lansing's spiritual energy. Those dormant Tao rhythms, concepts, and techniques pushed to their limits in the life or death crisis. My cultivation skyrocketed. Void refining, unity, great vehicle, tribulation, transcendence. Until that long missed threshold appeared before me. The heavenly sovereign sage, Luo Lingshuang sensed my change. Without hesitation, she used her demon lord power to protect me, single-handedly bearing the Luoyan heavenly Tao's relentless bombardment. Her demonic markings shattered. Blood stained her white hair. Her dark robe was torn to shreds. But she didn't take a step back. Senior brother, hurry. I closed my eyes. My primordial spirit resonated with heaven and earth. The memories and cultivation of my past life flooded back like torrent. The heavenly sovereign me had returned. I opened my eyes. A long sword condensed in my hand, pure silver, with patterns of heavenly Tao laws flowing on its blade. It wasn't the immortal sword of Jai. It was my own life-bound immortal sword, forged from my own Tao fortune. The immortal sovereign and the demon lord wielded their swords together. One white, one black, two sword lights intertwined into a spiral, tearing apart the Luoyan heavenly Tao's chaotic form. It let out a roar that shattered mountains and rivers, and counterattacked wildly. The battle lasted for several months. Lansing's geography was rewritten. Oceans raised towering waves. Continental plates trembled. In the end, I used my heavenly sovereign Tao fortune as a rope, and Luo Lingshuang used her demon lord power as a lever. Together, we peeled the Luoyan heavenly Tao's origin from Lansing, sealing it back into the Luoyan continent. We severed all passages between the two worlds. The Luoyan heavenly Tao let out a final mournful cry as it was pressed back into its own world. The cost was equally heavy. Lansing's heavenly Tao had exhausted its last origin in catastrophe, dissolving into nothingness. The shackles of the heavenly Tao were no more. From then on, Lansing's spiritual energy flowed freely. Cultivators no longer had a ceiling. A true great cultivation era had begun. After the war, Lansing was scarred, but life still remained. The Kunlun Elder took the lead in rebuilding order. Xiao Wenyuan was pushed forward as a core figure of the new demon suppression bureau. Gu Mengyao broke through her bottleneck during the catastrophe, stepping into the nascent soul stage. Mortals didn't fully understand what had happened, but everyone remembered that day. The black and white sword lights intertwined in the sky. Auntie was safe and sound. After the war, she took my and Luo Lingshuang's hands, rambling on about staying safe, then urged us again to get the important stuff done. Luo Lingshuang rarely blushed. I smiled and agreed. A month later, in the evening, I and Luo Lingshuang returned to that small wooden cabin in the forest. The one she had conjured out of thin air when she was taking care of unconscious. The setting sun, filtering through leaves, fell on her white hair, dyeing it a warm gold. She leaned on my shoulder, unusually quiet. Lingshuang, I'm so right. Her body stiffened. She looked up at me. These were the 3 words she had waited 1,300 years for. Back in the final battle on the Luoyan continent, she had grabbed my chin and demanded them, but I never said them. The apology recorded in the immortal sword of Jai, separated by life and death, didn't count. What did you say? Her voice trembled. I'm so right for making you suffer. I reached out and ruffled her hair, just like I did 300 years ago at the Xuanshan sect. And thank you for coming to find me. Luo Lingshuang's tears silently fell. She didn't cry out loud. She just tightly gripped my sleeve, as if letting go would mean losing me again. After a long time, she muttered one sentence. You still owe me a wedding. I laughed. Several months later, with Auntie's arrangements, and witnessed by Xiao Wenyuan, Gu Mengyao, and a few close friends, a simple wedding was held in the mountains. Luo Lingshuang wore a red wedding dress that Auntie had personally chosen. The markings on her forehead, against the red dress, no longer seemed cold, but rather like a blooming red plum blossom. She was so nervous the whole time, she didn't know where to put her hands. A 1,300-year-old demon lord. At that moment, lie an 18-year-old bride. I held her hand and said one sentence, very softly, so only she could hear. From now on, senior brother isn't going anywhere. Her tears fell again. But this time they were tears of joy. On the 3rd day after the wedding, I sensed something unusual during my cultivation. A faint, familiar fluctuation. It came from deep within my soul. I opened my eyes and saw Luo Lingshuang looking at me. Her eyes held a question. I smiled and shook my head. It's nothing. After the heavenly shackles vanished, the barrier between Blue Star and Fallen Cow continent grew extremely fragile. And above these two worlds, a brand new spatial passage was slowly taking shape. The aura surging from that passage was incredibly ancient. The spiritual energy dense, far surpassing the total of Blue Star and Fallen Cow continent. I probed into the passage with my divine sense at the celestial venerate level, and the sight I saw froze me stiff. An infinitely vast immortal palace ruin, with a chessboard placed on a stone table. Countless countless chess pieces lay on the board. Two of them, one black and one white, were faintly glowing. The black piece held all the mountains, rivers, and stars of falling cow continents, while the white piece held the azure planet of blue star. Two worlds were merely two pieces on the chessboard, and there were thousands more pieces on the board. The stone chair beside the board was empty, covered in dust, showing the player had left long, long ago. So long ago that even the Immortal Palace had turned to ruins. Senior brother, what did you see? Luo Lingshuang noticed my abnormality and walked over. I was silent for a moment, then took her hand. Lingshuang, do you want to know what our world really is? He looked down at our interlocked fingers, then raised his head, his eyes reflecting that light leading to the unknown, a smile slowly curling at the corners of his mouth. Not the cold smile of the demon lord, but the smile of that little junior sister from back then. Wherever senior brother goes, Lingshuang will follow. I turned to look at little aunt. Jiang Yixu stood at the wooden house door, holding an outer robe that Luo Lingshuang had left behind. Her eyes were red, but she still smiled and waved her hand. Don't keep your wife waiting. Remember to come back. I bowed deeply. Then, shoulder to shoulder with Luo Lingshuang, stepped into the light leading to the upper realm. The moment the passage closed, a laugh so ancient it couldn't be traced faintly came from deep within the Immortal Palace, as if the player had finally waited for someone to open